Hey, Mr. Half5end, my friend, how you doing, buddy?
I'm good.
Yeah.
How are you?
Good. Enjoying my time getting into the weekend here. It's a little bit rainy weather outside, but we're surviving. So
you got lots of snow here. I'm not a fan.
Oh yeah, the snow can be kind of stinky. So
yeah, I'm a warm weather person, so
I feel that.
Bring that back around, that'd be great.
Yeah, back when I was in California, we should have had you out there more, I guess.
Yeah.
Well, I'll make a time machine and we'll course correct that. How about that?
Perfect.
Cool.
Let's do it.
All right. So Marvel Future Revolution. I'm not sure where this conversation is going to go, but I know the basis of it. Mm-hmm. So you and I haven't talked much other than, saying, hey, I want to talk a little bit about the state of the game, some population numbers, and we're just going to see where the convo goes. So I guess I'll lead with saying, like, we know some people on our server, even in our alliances, who are sort of fed up with things, get frustrated through, adjustments that Netmarble has made, and, felt like their builds kind of just fell apart, right? Mm-hmm. And I get that frustration, and, I'm not sure, what Netmarble is planned with something like that, because it does feel bad. I think ultimately what we're seeing, and we've done a video on this before where we saw the population numbers adjust. So first, before we get into specifics of the population, which I've got kind of above us on the screen, how are you feeling, or what are you seeing as far as people telling you about the state of the game? I guess it's a two-part question, you and what you're seeing from other people.
It just feels like I was going to say week, but almost feels like on a daily basis now, you're starting to hear less and less positive. It's getting to become where it's a generally negative conversation most people are having about the state of the game. It's either indifferent or negative. It's rarely positive of late. So that's just kind of an observation I've made.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It definitely has peaks and valleys, and I don't know if this is just another valley, or what's going on. It tends. I know from another game you and I met each other in that game actually had a recent article just blasting it, and it seems to be every year that game just at the end of the year, beginning of the year, it just sort of falls apart a little bit. I don't find that necessarily what I'd call an acceptable thing where I'm paying, lots of money for. So I certainly want game developers to be able to take time off, especially around the holidays and end of the year. But that's just something I'm just randomly throwing out there. But I tend to agree with you. A lot of people are sort of just, I'm done. I'm not, I'm not going to play this anymore. I'm frustrated, or I'm only playing because you're there, or a friend or a community or whatever. And as we got these shout out to Undertaker. I'm sorry if I'm saying that wrong. I'm just basing it off the spelling, and I'm not good at English. So I think both of us sent us this chart that I've got on the screen. And again, for anybody who's not aware, there are some folks who have characters on every server that's out there. And what they will do is they will do, a 1-star on the battle challenge, just level 1. And then they will see what their rank is, and they will do that every week and continually track the population. And that's their measure. They say that's how many people they believe are on the server. There's certainly some flaws potentially in that anybody who's not doing battle challenge. But, and I think you made this argument in our last video, is if somebody's not even doing battle challenge rank 1 or 2, then are they even really playing the game?
Right. So it's not, is it a perfect measurement? No, but is it fair to say that it's close enough? Yes.
Yeah, and I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
So, and now the truth is, I'm actually looking at the direct numbers for the first time with you here as we're shooting this. What I immediately go to is off to the right. So they've got a percent count there, and this is from the end of December through the beginning of February. So there's a month and about a week gap there to see the difference. And you can see, obviously there's a total at the bottom, which is about 28%. And let's find our server. Where are we at there? A Mega Flight lost about 21%. So it's a little bit under that average, but you got to consider most people on a Mega Flight are try hard types that typically push through things for a little bit longer than I'd say most players would.
Yeah, it does seem like the servers with that already started with the lower population are seeing the least amount of attrition. And then on the higher side, the more populated servers, the ones that are in the 5K range, are seeing more of the attrition. But then you have the one that it looks like Asgard isn't too bad. And then Midgardia. Yes, there's a couple 6Ks in there that aren't too bad. Yeah. But yeah, on the upper end, it looks like 35%. Yikes! That's a lot, man.
I know. I mean,
and this is already off a bad number, so it's a bad number that's become worse.
Yeah, and that's kind of where we get a little concerned with stuff like this. And I don't know if you saw some of they had their I think it was their fourth quarter numbers released because it's a publicly traded company. So we saw some charts on that. I did a video on that the other day. It wasn't great. It wasn't bad. It was a little bit under 7 Deadly Sins, much under Marvel Contest of Champions. Marvel, it was better than Marvel Future Fight because it was higher than 3% of their revenue, but it still was sort of a, why isn't this better? Why isn't this bigger? Because you and I have talked, we just feel like the game has tons of potential, and I feel like we always say that.
Yep.
And
that's the first thing I was going to say is the game that I think that's the problem all of us have with it. At its core, the game has a ton of potential, and it's like the players can see. Not all of them. We don't have all the answers, but generally speaking, a lot of our perspectives, the things that we want to see, the things we'd like, they're not huge asks, and there are things that we feel like should be on the table. They should be able to be put in the game, and sometimes you get the feeling like they don't play their own game. So
yeah, I could see that. I mean, just the talk of what the recent nerfs that people had, where they picked a path, right? They picked Spider-Man and they picked this particular path with a certain gear because that's in the game. It's really good. Now, I think you and I are in agreement that particular path and then a couple other ones were sort of broken. They needed to be adjusted a little bit. But regardless, the player picked that path. And then after the adjustments, the player felt that, okay, well, this path build isn't viable anymore. And it's not easy to change from that.
Yeah.
Sure, you could transmute some gear to somebody, but what if the rolls that you had on that gear, was built specifically for that character?
Yeah. So kind of what happened was, players picked a linear path to a build that was the meta, and then instead of adjusting the meta, they dumped the meta and made a new one, and now they have a new linear path they have to follow, making their old build obsolete. And so whatever avenue you took, nothing's cheap to get to a place, be it either time, money, or both, to get to an end result in this game for stats that's got to not feel good if you dumped time, money, or energy into building a specific setup for the skills and loadout and everything you did in this particular build that you had confidence in, was a tried and true proven build that worked, and now it just dumped. It doesn't work anymore, and now you have to start that process all over or quit.
Right. Right. And it's like you said, I mean, we're 3 to 6 months in, depending on when you started the game, or more now, I guess. I should say like 5 to 8.
What's wrong with just dialing builds in? Why did they have to completely unwind? I don't know.
I mean, that's the part where it's like, okay, so say, for instance, let's just use numbers that might not be exact, but they wanted to adjust, or they did adjust something by 10% because it was broken. Right.
Yeah, well, it's like you went from too much active dodge in some cases to one character. Now it's not like, why couldn't you just dial it into where it's enough, appropriate amounts? Like they did all these like goofy things to try to make nerfs feel like they weren't nerfs by adding percentage damage and all kinds of weird. I don't know, man.
Yeah, I would have thought if they changed it by 10, maybe they should have changed it by 3. And if the 3 wasn't enough, or maybe 5, and if the 5 was still too much, okay, bring it down a couple more. If the 3 was too little, then bring it up a couple more. But like it felt like, if you were making an ice sculpture and you're like, oh, that's not exactly right over there. Instead of taking like a nice chisel to it, they took a sledgehammer to the side of it. It's like, okay, well now my ice sculpture's done. Like, what do you want me to do with this thing? Like I've spent, and maybe that's a good analogy I just made up on my side or on the cuff here. It was like, I spent all this time like chiseling away every fine little detail that, you directed me towards this path because you gave me certain instructions. And then you just like took a sledgehammer to the side of it. Like, I can't just put these pieces of ice back on this thing. Like, sure, maybe some of it I could, but yeah, I mean,
and the other thing I don't like is, why do we have linear paths in meta builds anyway? There should be tons of meta builds. There should be tons of stuff that works and is viable.
Yep.
There's 50 skills you don't use on a character because they're not good enough to put in a build. I think there's typically 1 or 2 builds for PvP.
Yeah.
That you can make on a character, and then there's typically 1 build for PvE, and that seems to be it. Like, why can't we have some variety, some theory crafting, some putting together some really there are, like, let's because I'm Iron Man, let's think of this, not what we could be using. Let's just have this conversation. What would happen to Iron Man in any PvP build if you didn't have spin blade?
I know where you're going. Yeah.
If I just discluded that, so you're pretty much telling me I have to have that ability in.
Yep.
And then as far as Jarvis abilities, the buff abilities, weakness scan and speed amp, the other 2, you're out of your mind if you use them. There's 4 of them. Mm-hmm. You're out of your mind if you use any of the other 2.
Yep.
I don't know. Like, this conversation could go on and then there's just a whole bunch of bad abilities. There's tons of bad specs in Iron Man's tree. There's just a bunch of non-viable, waste of time specs. The fact that we can't even have fun with the spec trees either, where we can't swap on the fly.
Yeah.
You should be able to hit your A, B, or C button on the front interface, and you should be able to try different PvE and PvP loadouts. It should be tied into that. No gold, no nothing. You should be able to load up specs on top of that. But
so
it seems like a pretty crazy oversight.
Speaking of the spec topic, how many of your primary specs, not the little sub ones, do you have at 0 out of 10 on Iron Man?
Probably 3.
Okay.
But I will say this though, in hindsight, if I knew what I knew now, then it would be a lot more. It'd be almost. I would only have 5 specs maxed out. All the rest would be 0.
Yeah,
but that's because I was testing and
sure
trying different stuff. But now, knowing what I know now there's some of my maxed out I know are trash. They don't even work.
Right. Yeah, I think I have 3. I was just looking. The reason I asked that is because I was looking at mine real quick. I'm like, I wonder how many he has as well. So I have 3 at 0 as well. And there's probably at least 2 more that I probably didn't. Maybe 3 more. That I probably didn't need to go down the path for, at least for the end game. Maybe it helped me while I was building up and, in lower power. But once I got a little bit bigger, closer to whatever the end game technically is, I really didn't need those anymore. So, I think, like you mentioned, that fundamentally, along with the skills that you're mentioning, is a problem. I mean, I remember I've just recently started diving into other characters' skills a bit more, just giving my 2 cents about what I think's good and da-da-da-da. And I noticed when I was going through Iron Man's, I was kind of like, this ability has so much potential. Like, why don't you change it from, I think one of them was a Jarvis ability that it reduces, maybe it builds back up your guard gauge. Yeah, I think it was what it was. And I'm like, that is so situational. That like nobody's gonna do that. I'm like, why don't you make that like a barrier, like a shield? It's just a shield. You know what I mean? Like, just make it a shield. Yeah.
Iron Man has no defensive abilities at all. None.
Yeah.
The only thing you do on Iron Man is you try to stay in your spin blade as much as possible so you don't get killed.
Yep. Yep.
And it's glass cannon, kill you as quick as I can before you kill me. If I cannot do that, you will come back and kill me. That's how he works.
Yep.
There's no invisibility, no active dodge meter. There's no invulnerability.
No revives.
There's no revive. There's nothing like that. It's stay in your eye. And most I made a video, and then more people started using precision bombing.
Oh yeah.
But before that, guided missiles isn't an iframe, so you'd be using that. And again, that's back to the conversation. There's only a couple good skills. What about the other two on that tree? You don't use them. I don't know. There's
a laser cutter one I remember seeing too, and I'm thinking that could be adjusted slightly to be way better. You know what I mean? And I'm kind of like, there's so much. Anyway, so you get the idea, right? We're talking about a lot of specifics here. And I mean, each character has a great amount of skill abilities. And it's like you said, like, why aren't these more feasible? Why aren't, and look, I mean, the player base, if we're missing something from the company, then the company should be like, in my mind, maybe, is, hey guys, maybe you might want to consider building over here. You're missing something obvious. But I think generally speaking, given the player base, and this is why a lot of companies just beta test or let their games go out, because they realize players figure this stuff out better than anybody else. So they just let the players figure it out and then they adjust. But why not just, I don't know. I mean, and maybe that's part of what they're doing, but it is frustrating. And I think that's part of the reason we're seeing these numbers, because people are just kind of like,
well, and the other thing too is I don't know why they're allergic to scalable content, but they are.
Yeah.
There was a long time ago, someone actually told me I bought my way out of the game. Now, in my defense, I only spent on one character, and they're leaning into a place where I think they're trying to create value in building your roster, which it's a little late for that now, but I think they're going to try to create more avenues to incentivize players to spend on more than one character. But I spent on one character, and when I used to complain about not having challenges, there was this argument. Some people were like, you wailed your way out of having fun. Well, that's completely unfair, first of all, because if you're going to financially support the game, like, give me something to do.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah, and the idea of whaling yourself out of the game is the most profoundly idiotic argument I've ever heard. You should not decentivize the people that are funding your game. There should be scalable content, stuff for everyone to do. And I think the fact that they put all the Endgame in PvP was another oversight too. But yeah, man, there's like, again, they put in new content, and for a percentage of the player base, it's already autoable, like stuff that you can auto. Yeah. Like, we're right back to the same place already. And they've given us an avenue for, over time, we're going to add players are going to add another 500k of power onto themselves through badges, through 10 more levels, through new content, through companions. We're going to end up with, at some point, there are going to be 3 mil players on servers. Yeah. I bet you anything. Yep. After they get all the badges, they get everything as they keep giving this incremental power out. Yet they haven't built the game around incremental power at all.
Which is sort of crazy. Yeah.
Because it's wildly nuts.
Yeah. Side note for the on the video, I accidentally clicked the button that's going to show a flash on the screen. Apologies for that. But no, I agree with you. Like, why can't, I mean, and you've been preaching about this, I swear, since the beginning. Like, why can't there be a ladder that you can climb, or people similar to you, that has no top? That the top is as far as you can go. And once you get to that point where you literally can't climb anymore because your muscles just can't, go another rung, that you're done. It's like, all right, I've reached level 248. That's it. I'm done. I can't go any farther because I'm just not strong enough. And then at some point, the game will introduce a mechanic or a skill build or a piece of gear or a companion or something that will help you get past level 248, right? And I would tend to agree that, especially with free-to-play games, if I was to make one of these games, you bet your butt that would be one of the first things I'd do, is I would go, look, we got to find a way that, yes, spending is not going to get you, like, I mean, you need to gain an advantage, and it's got to be a good advantage, but it's not going to be so much that the free-to-play are just like, I can't even compete at all. But at the same time, you're incentivizing that person who's paying to gain those advantages, and there's stuff for them always to do.
So now you and I have we've talked about this, and I've been preaching about it for a long time. PVE, for them to lean into it more, to give us challenging PVE, dungeon crawls, the like. But here's another example. They've de-incentivized us even spending on PVE because there's no. It's a waste of money if you were to even do that. It's a waste of money. Now, on some level, because of Dark Zone, having a strong PVE build is a good move if you're one of the 3% of the player base that spends an hour in Dark Zone farming every night. You're a strong PVE build is for you.
It's not there. I mean, your point is it's not there. It's not incentivized. It's just not there.
All they've done is incentivize PvP through painful game mechanics and poor matchmaking.
Yeah.
That's the only incentivization for spending that they've made.
Right. And I mean, granted, they've got the Alliance PvE, whatever that's going to be. Hopefully that's good. We'll see. TBD.
And the other thing is too, the players that are on the bad end of that stick are mad at the other players that are on the good end, like it's their fault. Like, we're not in charge of matchmaking, spend ceiling, in-game dynamics, why your character does or doesn't work, why your build go all you have, you have two innocent parties that are both trying to enjoy a game. There's everyone's trying to make this about the other players, and it's zero to do. Zero.
Yeah, we were just in the same room together.
The only time it can ever be a player's fault for something that happens in game, for someone dying, winning, losing, whatever the outcome is if cheating is involved. That's it.
I think that's fair. That's
the only time you can be mad at another player is if they're cheating.
Yeah.
And I'll say that's the only time I've been legitimately angry outside, other than stuff that shouldn't be involved in the game, where it was someone came at me personally,
like a personal attack, right?
Yeah, like a personal attack. Other than that, in-game stuff that made me upset with antics in the game, that made me upset with the actual player, was I was on the you and I both were on the receiving end of some cheating in Dark Zone.
Right.
And that made me mad. I was like, man, if you're going to compete with me, I'm down with that. We were up for the competition aspect of it. That was what was fun. Yeah, gang up on us, do all that, come up with a strategy. But then when we found out cheating was involved, then I was like, come on, man. That was bad.
That was let's not do that. Let's not go down that path. Let's just compete, and the winner will be the winner, and the loser will be the loser. But that's, I mean, I'm with you on that whole narrative where, I was thinking about this as you were talking. It's sort of like if somebody builds a house, or a game developer, and two people go into a room, and it's just like we're doing something in said room, but we're mad about what the room is like. You know what I mean? It's like, well, I didn't make this room and you didn't make this room, but we're sitting there fighting about it. You know what I mean? Well, it's your fault the room's like this. The room should be this way. It's like, okay, but I think the room should be this way. And we're screaming at each other, and none of us made the room. We're just in the room.
Completely out of both people's control, yet they're holding one another accountable for it.
And it's kind of like, okay, I get, and you could certainly understand each other's frustrations, and you're certainly competing for whatever it is you're competing against in this room. Yeah. But we do, as a society in general, sort of blame others for stuff like that. And like you said, it's gotten personal with you and I, obviously. I saw something this week, even in game, where somebody said something that was just, I couldn't believe what this person said to another player. Couldn't believe it. And I was kind of like, wow, that is how far you are taking this, because somebody is in a PvP zone fighting, and I'm assuming killed this person in this PvP zone, and you are going to say something that is that mean that you hope that they actually have physical damage done to them in real life. Wow. Or just wow.
I've been on the receiving end a bunch of times. It's the craziest thing I've ever.
Yeah. And it's just look, from what I know, look, certainly people say what they're going to say about us, and we're, biased one way or another, but I also believe to be a rational human being. And I will say that, from everybody that I've played with in this game, in the Alliance, there is no person, even people who I'll say troll in world chat is sort of, playful. None of them, I've heard them say, want any actual harm done to another human being. Not one of them.
Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
what I mean? And it's kind of like
Trolling and that's one thing, trolling, but once stuff turns into where there's real life, I don't know.
yeah, it gets so we're getting off topic a little bit here, but you guys get the idea. Is like there's these mechanics in game that lead us down this path because there's issues. And I think some of these issues are involved with why people are leaving. Some of it has to do with what Half said about, game mechanics and, only one path and not a lot of skills or no PvE or, all these Omega War matchmaking, which was supposed to be fixed in this last night's patch, but it sounds like it might not have been. Because I've been in some matches where it's me, you,
I got 100 kills earlier.
Yeah, and let me guess, like you were just going back and forth between the spawns because nobody could do anything to you.
Yeah, nothing was different.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, like, I mean, I've been part of those matches where it's been, I've queued up solo and I've queued up and I end up on the same team as people from our alliance who are 1.8 Iron Man, 1.8 million Iron Man. People from other alliances are 1.6, 1.7, all of us on the same team. And the biggest person on the other team's like 1.2. And I'm going, why did you put all of us together and against these people? So it's really unfortunate. Look, we keep saying it. The game does have some potential. I hope that it sort of corrects itself a little bit. I think we have lost some friends that are probably never coming back, unfortunately.
Well, here on a positive note, though, I ask myself all the time. There's something that still keeps me logging in. Part of it's the people, but a big portion of it is for reasons the game is still fun for me. In I try to put my finger on it, and it's the open world areas in the game where we compete and the ability to fly and how good the flying feels, traversing the environment, the interactions you can still have with people in the game. A lot of it still feels enjoyable. It's just still based on a lot of potential and a lot of dialing in needs to happen. But to be fair, after everything we just said, I still personally am having fun.
Yeah, I think that's fair.
However, it's like a declining amount of fun.
Yeah.
And the reason I'm having fun is different than why other people, what I mean? Like my experience through the way I got to where I'm at in the game is going to be wildly different because some of my fun is from Dark Zone, which a lot of people absolutely despise that zone and everything it stands for. Yep. So there you go. You know what I mean? And finding a happy medium. I don't know, man. I just, again, the game has a ton of potential. And if future fight is like, there's some games like that I feel like they've done that were in the same place that this game is in now at the same time frame, and then they turn some of these games around.
Yeah,
I don't know if they've got a tried and true method of doing this. Like I said, I've screamed this from mountaintops too. It feels like we're beta testers and we're doing all the testing for them before they get out their polished game.
Yeah,
but like, man, I hope the game doesn't flatline first. It's the only thing
no, and I'm with you there. To wrap this thing up a little bit, I haven't talked to you about this. But a concept that somebody presented to me. You're familiar with Jopan, the Doctor Strange? I don't know if you're... Okay. Yep. So hit me up on Discord, and I just published this video today. But the concept that he was talking about is not focusing on a character, but focusing on a gear set and cards. And that way it gives you a flexibility. Without getting too into the weeds of it, at the high level, do you think that's something that's feasible and like attractive to players, or do you think that could be defeated because somebody might want to be, like in your case, I want to play Iron Man, and like sit there? What path do you think that's something that players should even think about? So the concept is like so if you, for instance, Spider-Man went down Xanderth. They had Xanderth. They went a particular path, and then they changed it. They can't dodge as much. They're sort of screwed. So instead of going down that path, you sort of look at the gear sets and you go, Midgardia is a gear set that I could do well in all these different characters, 4 of them, 5 of them, whatever they might be. So I'm not picking Spider-Man per se, or I'm not picking Captain America. I'm picking Midgardia, and I'm picking Midgardia to start on Widow. And if they change something with Widow, I know that I can flex over to these other 3 tunes. And that way it gives you the ability to be a little bit, be able to adjust some if they do nerfs or anything like that.
So you're talking about like a transmutation process that's where you don't transmute?
No,
like
no,
you
no.
can
Like
switch?
I'm just, it's kind of a conceptual process. Like we have transmute. You could do that right now, right? All of these things are in game right now. It's more of a mentality as a player. If you have the mentality of not necessarily saying I picked Spider-Man, but say I picked Xanderth. I picked the gear set Xanderth because I see that Xanderth is good on Spider-Man, but if they ever change Spider-Man, I know I can take it to Star-Lord or to another character that I might be willing to play.
Yeah, I don't know, man. They don't incentivize playing multiple characters very well right now. It's just to get to like a top tier percentage depending on what character you're playing. It's all different values. Obviously, Black Widow, you could get there spending less money. On Iron Man, I feel like you have to whale pretty hard at.
Captain America, you spend a ton.
Yes, Captain America, you'd have to whale your brains out. I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like where the game is right now, that's not really an option.
Yeah, I thought it was an interesting concept. I talked about it a little bit. I don't want to get into too much here. I know I just dumped that on you. I was just, as we were talking about that, I was like, I should ask Half about this and see what he thinks. So any sort of last, I mean, again, I guess before I throw it to you to sort of give your last thoughts is I do hope that the game does get better and they give us some of these things that incentivize us a little bit. Like you said, I also keep coming back. I've got it, running where I'm farming, making sure I get my dailies in. Am I trying a little less hard for, higher scores in certain zones? Yeah, certainly, because, juice squeeze, all that sort of thing. But what are your sort of last hopes for the moment right now in the game?
It's interesting. So a lot of us started playing Lost Ark recently, and I don't know how many people will be drawn from that, but that's a game where all intents and purposes, they've thought of everything. It is free to play. And you talk about leaning, the pay to win ceiling is really, really low because you can't really, everything's balanced. Free to play characters can carry, and you have whales that can be bad because they don't know mechanics. It's just a game like where they could take a page out of a lot of those books. Hopefully they don't lose anybody to Lost Ark. It's two completely different games, obviously. Yeah. But just playing that game over the last couple of days, it was kind of like, wow, this game has done everything it can to make things feel good and be fair. And it's just kind of an interesting where that's always been the downside of Future Revolution. It's, heavy whaling, caters to whales with the spend ceiling, stuff like that. Everything's really grindy. The RNG doesn't feel good.
The RNG is the part that drives me nuts.
Just go crush cores for a while. It'll make you feel awful. Like, whereas this game's thought of everything. It's already been tested. They figured stuff out. I don't know.
I think there's one RNG component in that game that I've heard of so far.
I hope someone that actually plays Marvel Future Revolution and also plays Lost Ark is taking notes that works over at Netmarble. Yeah, do you know what I'm saying? Like somebody that plays their game has an understanding and actually plays that game and goes, oh wow, we should probably try this. Yeah,
I mean, because they're both. I mean, while one's mobile and one's PC, they are both MMO. Right. So they've got a similar sort of, genre there that you can be similar. Right. So I'm with you. I'm also playing Lost Ark as, I haven't been as intense into it as some of the other folks, but it is very cool and it's a pretty looking game. So we'll see how that is. Shout out to, Half's channel and, making sure to follow him for all that stuff. I've got a second channel if you want to go follow that. That was an unintended promo for both of us there. Speaking of, so tell anybody who doesn't already know where to find you.
Half5end. S is a 5. Half5end.
Yep.
Well, I actually have a Half5end channel as well, but yeah, Half5end.
He's
on the YouTubes, on the Discords, on the Twitches, all those guys. We're everywhere.
And as you've probably if you made it this far, we appreciate you too. As you've probably noticed, if you're watching this channel, I am very enamored with Mr. Half5end. He's a good human being. I like him. He's a good theory crafter. We talk on the phone for hours at times, and he's just a good person. This isn't just a YouTube thing, so we really do like to do this. I mean, literally, I texted him, you know, just before this, hey, do you want to go do something? Put nothing together, just talk. We're almost at 36 minutes now. So it just, I don't know. Anyway, good person. Go check out his content. Always going to fully support him. Great guy. That's all I got. You got anything else to throw at anybody before we get out of here?
Nope, that's it, man. Thanks for hanging out with us. I always love having these conversations, man. You're easy to, you and Callista, man. I can just talk to you both for hours.
Yeah, it's fun. It's fun. Yeah, I love those times. So thanks for stopping by. Hammer down like button below, notification bell, subscribe, all that sort of thing. Until next time, we hope you guys have a wonderful day. Bye.